Hi, everybody. I think I am on air now. Yeah, here we go. I think I'm coming up on air. I just wanted to uh, catch up with you for a few minutes on some of the things that we're going to be doing in regard to the upcoming China trip. I think I just got back from a training session a couple of weeks ago where I was in Rome for several days. And one of the things that happened there was that I was able to get a lot of information on things that we want to think about in regard to the trip. So one of the things that I'm going to be doing here is going over some of the information that I found out while I was in Rome, and just some things to think about. We're 4 months away from the trip, so we actually have a fair amount of stuff that we, fair amount of time to get stuff done, and we'll have more meetings. But I just wanted to kind of prime the pump a little bit with that amount of time, so that I see that more people are joining while we're talking here. Kind of getting rolling here, so that just to put a few things in your mind with while we have a few months out to get ready. I also want to talk a little bit about the fundraising event. If you are signed in with a Google account, just to let you know, one of the things that you can do is go to the email that I sent today. I'm going to show you just real quick. Hang on a sec. I'll share my screen. Okay, hang on a sec. Here we go. So if you look at the on the email I sent today, if you go to this link here, it actually takes you to the Google Plus page that I have I'm doing the session through, so you can actually write questions. I'm not quite sure where they pop in, but if you have any questions or anything while we're going, you can go ahead and bring those in. So I'm going to go, actually, I'm going to stay on the shared screen for a minute here, and I'm going to go to a document I'm going to be working out of a little bit to talk about during this session. So I think everybody's seen the email on this, but I just wanted to reiterate that our dates are set. Departure June 21, return June 29th. One of the things about that is that we won't have more information until they put several tours together. So we're still awaiting, as it says here, the actual flight and hotel info, and that's probably going to be another month or so coming. I had asked everybody for passport numbers. I know that some of you guys are still in process with passports, but I'm going to really need passport numbers by March 1st so that we can, as much as possible, if for some reason your passport's not come through by then, hopefully we'll be able to get you in without too much trouble. But it may be that you have to pay a slight late penalty for booking the internal flights. And when I say internal flights, those are flights from Beijing to Xi'an, and then from Xi'an to Shanghai. So we'll be doing those kind of in the middle of the trip. Also, in regard to passports and what have you, I got a notice that we will be getting emails about a visa application trip as soon as we have the details that we're able to provide for the visas. And I'll be in touch then. The visas are very picky documents, the visa application, so we'll need to make sure that we're doing those right. That may be a good time for us to get together and have a meeting and make sure everybody's filling those out correctly. One other thing I'll just mention while I'm kind of talking about passports, as we get closer to the trip, I'll do some reminders on this, but you will want to have multiple photocopies of your passport. Some to put in your baggage in case that gets lost, one to leave home, and then one to carry with you during the day. Sometimes mostly what you want to do is leave your passport in a hotel safe or back at the hotel while we're out. So you'll want a copy of your passport with you. Some of the things to be thinking about ahead of time. One of them is, and it's been brought up about getting to the airport, and there's been some interest in possibly getting a group bus. I'm going to put out just a survey on that, anybody that might be interested, and I'll try to find some cost. That is not something that Blue Ridge can pay for, but something we'd all have to contribute to, those of us who would be riding that. So I'm going to see what I can find out about that, and maybe get a bus to and from there. That might be an easier way to travel. I just want to clarify, if you haven't traveled internationally, you want to be there 2 to 2.5 hours ahead of time. For us, because we're in a group, I put 2.5 hours. That gives us time to kind of get together as a group and go through the various channels that we need to get onto the plane with. So we'll want to make sure that you're thinking in terms of 2.5 hours, particularly once we find our flight times. A lot of information. We got a lot of information at the training about luggage, and having done the training trip and having done the China trip before, here's some things to be thinking about ahead of time. One of them is you want to do only carry-on luggage. So make sure you know what the sizes are. I'll send out some information on that, like what the dimensions and weights are. I will tell you that, particularly because we'll be doing other flights inside the country, there's just checking luggage would just be guaranteed lost luggage for somebody and kind of a disaster. It's very easy to pack for a trip like this within a single piece of luggage. You're going to stick to 1 or 2 pairs of shoes. You're going to stick to some basic clothes. Most of the hotels we'll be staying at will have fairly inexpensive and quick laundry service. So if you want to take some things, knowing that you'll be getting them laundered while you're there, that's a good idea. And you're going to want to be packing light. It's going to be really hot. Beijing and Xi'an and Shanghai in the summertime are very warm and humid. So you'll want to pack things that are light and lightweight. So that'll actually help with the packing. So we'll talk a little bit about that as we get closer. I mentioned the light clothes. You'll probably want to bring some rain gear. One of the things that I found when I went before was that it rained about 3 days while I was there. So I was very happy to have a very light nylon rain jacket with me. You'll definitely want some good walking shoes, and you don't want to try them out on the trip. I'll talk in a minute about how much walking we're going to do, but it's going to be a lot. Definitely want to have good walking shoes, and you want to break those in, and you want to just get some good walking time in, because prior to the trip, make sure you're in good training for that. One thing, a lot of people say, what do I do about things that I buy? If I'm buying souvenirs or buying other things. One of the things that I saw when I went to China before, and actually saw on the Rome trip as well, is that some people either bring like a collapsible bag that they can put stuff that they buy in, or they buy a bag while they're there. And it's easy and cheap to do in China. There's a lot of knockoff. You can get like Swiss Army luggage, or other kind of it's fake, but it's really well made, believe it or not. And so I saw several people buy a suitcase for $10, put their extra stuff in, and then just check it on the way home. It's really not a problem to check from home, to check on the trip home, but it's a problem checking bags when we're going to China and going through China. So that's an option for you as well. Technology. One of the things that I would suggest is keep it light as much as possible. Go with iPads or tablet rather than full-on laptops. You just won't find that much time that you'll want to be using laptops. iPads are good for reading and all this other stuff. One of the things that I think you'll see happening there will be, it's going to, and I'll talk a little bit about this, but I'm sorry, getting off of this for a second. One of the things that you'll see is that Wi-Fi is not readily available. You will find it'll be in the hotels. It'll drop in and out. It'll be kind of spotty. I will have a hotspot for anybody that absolutely needs to get on Wi-Fi at different times, and it'll be set up for international use. But you'll definitely want to think in terms of the fact that don't always count on being able to get Wi-Fi. So one of the things I want to talk for a minute about is, I'm sharing my screen again, is you'll want to know about, have your setup for international plans. And I'll talk about that in a sec. Had some questions already about power adapters versus power converters. China has a kind of a funky, like a lot of foreign countries, a funky power system, very different from ours. A power adapter, all that does is changes the way that something plugs in. So it's still got the regular current. I think China's on a 220 volt system to convert power so that it's like US power. You need a power converter, which is much more expensive and more heavy. One of the things that I found is I didn't need a power converter there. I needed a power adapter, which is, again, just a kind of a plug that makes it possible to plug US type stuff into Chinese plugs. If you've got an iPhone, iPad, and I'm quite sure it works the same for Samsung and other Android devices, they can charge from Chinese current. So by that, I mean, if you have the power adapter, you can use that, and those things will charge from there just fine. The biggest thing, and I heard a lot about this on our training trip, was hair dryers. Hair dryers are a big problem. So if you bring a U.S. hair dryer, you would need the power converter, which again is more expensive and more heavy to carry around, because otherwise you're just going to blow your hair dryer right out. Many of the hotels actually have hair dryers. One thing you might want to do once we get our itinerary is to go on the hotel websites and check and see if they have hair dryers in the room. A lot of them do. The other thing that was strongly suggested was that several people coordinate on the use of hair dryers. It's not a big problem for me, so I really don't think a lot about it. So you'll definitely want to start checking into what your travel plans are for your phones. You may have to swap out a SIM card when you get there, or you may be able, for me, I have AT&T. I just tell them I'm going to be in China for this period of time. They give me a rate for international usage, and I've got some different possible plans for amounts of data. Or usually I have unlimited text while I'm over there. And it costs a little bit per minute to call. So you'll want to check with your phone provider and find out what you've got. And if you use hotspots, I'll be bringing one, as I mentioned, or sometimes you can use a phone or whatever as a hotspot. Just know what you're getting into as far as your data use is, because if you go over on an international plan, it can be big money. So just make sure that you know what you've got. And I mentioned Wi-Fi is shaky. I have KFC rules here. One of the things, for some reason, there are a lot of Kentucky Fried Chicken KFC places in China, and they all have Wi-Fi. So that's a great thing. If you're hankering for some chicken and you want to go check your your emails, that's a good place to do it. So a little bit about what it's going to be like. And I had the advantage of being on the China tour a few years ago. So I kind of saw this in action, but I was reminded when I was in Rome. These days will be really jam-packed with stuff. They start early. We get on a bus. We're going to usually 2 to 4 sites in a day. Somebody was keeping track on a Fitbit in Rome. We walked over 6 miles on one of our days sightseeing in Rome. That's a pretty high number, but I would say 3 miles is not unusual. So, one thing that you might want to do if you're not used to that much walking is to do a little bit before we get going. So a lot of times the typical days will start, 8 o'clock in the morning, and we'll be back at the hotel usually by about 5:30 or 6. Although many times we won't. Now that I think of it, depending on where we are, we might not be back till after dinner. So they're kind of long and involved days. Another thing about the days is sometimes there are extra outings available where you can go to a particular kind of show. And I think we'll have more information on what specifically is going to be available as we get closer. Primarily, we will decide those as a group, but it may be possible for smaller groups to go off to some of those things if other people don't want to do it. So we'll talk about that as we get closer as well. Just a heads up on the evenings. I found that it was really easy to go out in the areas where our hotels were in China. And if that's the case for this next trip, for this trip, it's a cool thing to do, particularly if you're near some of the old neighborhoods. People are very friendly and welcoming. But this is something that would be done with a group, with an adult present, and with some kind of communication. One of the things as we get closer, we're going to talk about some of the guidelines, things like curfews and where you can be and who you can be there with and that kind of stuff. So I just want you to know ahead of time, particularly students, be thinking about the fact that you're going to have curfews. You're also going to have rooming assignments. And for the students, I didn't realize this until I was on the trip, the training trip a few weeks ago. They actually work it out so there are usually 3 or 4 students to a room. And I'm not quite sure what that looks like. It may be a little different in China because the rooms tend to be a little smaller, but we'll kind of see as we go. But one of the things that we'll want to do is have each of you put together, if you have a roommate wish list, we'll need to get those together so that we can kind of coordinate who's going to be staying with whom over the course of the time. One of the things that we'll be doing, is we're going to several locations. So, we'll be in Beijing, we'll be in Xi'an, we'll be in Shanghai. So you may want to just switch roomies for those trips. So we'll kind of talk about that. But it's time, it's maybe good to be thinking about it a little bit ahead of time. Expenses, and this was something that was really brought to my attention in Rome as well. I think it's been mentioned. I mean, the breakfast will be provided usually at the hotel. That's usually pretty quick and easy. Dinners almost every night we'll be out to dinner somewhere. Very rarely would we do dinner on your own kind of thing. Lunch is usually on your own, but it's usually wherever we happen to be. And a lot of times the group will make a decision, hey, let's just go to this place. The guide will know a good restaurant. And if the group is all good for it, we'll go there. But the lunches will be your expense. The other things, and this is one that I had forgotten about, and that is that there's a pretty strong expectation of tips for the tour guide, for the bus driver, and for the local guides. We'll have local guides in each of the areas that we will be. I'll kind of get some information together. I'm thinking, based on what we've done so far for fundraising, I'm thinking that will largely be covered by our fundraising. But that's something that you'll want to be aware of. And, again, as we get closer, we'll know what that's going to look like in terms of monetary amounts. I think we'll be able to cover that, though. Shopping, again, shopping is, you don't want to be dragging a lot of stuff around through most of the trip. I will tell you that my experience was that Shanghai was the best shopping place. You may find other souvenirs in other places, other things that you really like, but Shanghai is, it's like New York, LA, and Barcelona all combined. It's got a little bit of everything, and you'll be able to do a lot of shopping. There's some neat kind of older traditional areas with traditional crafts. I found some really beautiful Chinese paintings, for example, and some silk scarves and things like that. But you can also find some really neat, just kind of souvenir-y stuff. And then there's a whole area in Shanghai, I don't know if we'll make it or not, but it's called the Knockoff Mall, where you can get basically copies of well-known products, anything from Levi's to suitcases to Ray-Ban sunglasses. So shopping will definitely be a possibility for you. So I think that kind of covers most everything about the trip. Just kind of be thinking ahead. You'll want to think about what kind of luggage you want to take. I like a backpack carry-on. I also bring a computer bag, but I usually don't take a computer with me. In my computer bag, I'll have a book for the plane flight, my iPad. I'll have things like my just maybe stuff just in case my other luggage gets lost, because sometimes luggage gets lost. So kind of essentials, my shaving kit, stuff like that. So we'll talk again about that, and we might even have a night. One of the recommendations from our training was that we might have a night where everybody comes in and practices packing. We've got there's some tips that I picked up that I can share with if we do that. So the last thing I wanted to hit on here was the fundraiser that we have scheduled for April 22nd. And this is going to be at Lightwell Restaurant in Orange. The folks at Lightwell have very generously offered to provide us with information about, or provide us with the venue, but also to share their profits for the evening. They're going to give us a cut of what they bring in. We also will be able to kind of work the audience. Usually, I don't know if y'all are familiar with this, but in Lightwell, the performers work for tips and actually do usually fairly well. So we're going to kind of play that part up and really work the crowd for donations for this trip. And so that'll involve some of the students, I think, getting on stage and saying, hey, this is what we're where we're going and what we're going to be doing and why we need some money. And anything would help, kind of soliciting that. The other thing I was hoping to do with this event was to have an online silent auction, which I think works pretty well for a virtual school. So we need some big items. I just actually came across today, somebody donated a guitar to us. So that's going to be a great thing. It's a nice guitar. So I'm going to get that cleaned up and have that as one of the auction items. I think I'll be able to talk, some folks around here into doing some special events that we could put on for auction. So that's something, particularly as we get a little farther into March, I want to start having some conversation about what's out there that people can contribute and how we're going to do that. So I see that, let me get back out of my screen share here because it's doing some crazy stuff. Hang on. There we go. I see that it looks like the number of viewers has kind of popped, going from anywhere from 3 to 8 to 10 to back to 8. If you've missed part of this, it will be, that link that I sent out for the YouTube, you should be able to get that broadcast. I'll be sending that out, sending that link back out. Also with some questions and some of the information that I've been covering here. I'm also going to share the document that I was using to screen share, and I might add some extra notes in there. So having seen this, if you have questions about any of the stuff that I've talked about, I think it would be a great idea to reply all to the email that I sent previously or the one that I send next with your questions, so that other folks can see those, and we can kind of get answers out there to everybody for when you do have questions. But if it's a private question, please feel free to send that to me privately as well. So I think that covers everything for now. And again, stay tuned. I'll be giving more information, and I'll be looking for an actual meeting date. This was just kind of a crunchy time. I actually was out of the country again last week. But now as we're heading into March, I think we'll have a little bit of time, and we'll be about 3 months out. That'll be a good time for us to put our heads together and on next steps for fundraising and also for the trip. So thanks, everybody, and I'll see you soon.